Let's be honest for a moment. Do you ever look at your life and feel like you're stuck living the same day on repeat? New cup of coffee, same mood. Fresh sunrise, same version of you. And when the discomfort creeps in, what's our usual fix? We change the playlist, swap the skincare routine, or grab another book that'll probably collect dust. Feels like progress, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Nothing extra needs to be added to you for your entire life to shift. You don't need to manifest harder. You don't need another journal prompt or a quote with a pastel sunrise telling you you got this. What you need is to grasp one simple truth. You're not stuck because you're incapable. You're stuck because you're loyal to a version of yourself that no longer fits. And that loyalty, that's why nothing changes. Now, let's sit with that because this is where most people get it twisted. They think change means waking up at 4 a.m., doubling down on the grind, chugging celery juice, and mapping out their 5-year plan. And sure, if that works for you, fine. But most of the time, that's not change. That's performance. Real change? It's not glamorous. It's not something you'll brag about on your story. Nobody's going to applaud you for quietly saying no when guilt screams at you to say yes. No one will throw you a party for choosing peace over another exhausting argument. But that's where the shift lives. In those small, ordinary moments where you almost abandon yourself, and then you don't.
Because if you don't, life just hands you mirrors. Different faces, same lessons. New situations, same cycles. It's not the universe punishing you. It's you, unconsciously chasing the comfort of what's familiar, even when it hurts. And here's the twist. Staying the same doesn't always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like survival. You smile, you function, you get things done. But underneath, there's that quiet ache, that whisper that says you weren't built just to cope your way through life. You were built for more. But to get there, you'll have to let parts of yourself die. The parts that kept you safe, but never free. And yeah, that's terrifying. Because comfort can disguise itself. It doesn't always feel warm. Sometimes it feels hollow, routine dressed up as stability. You wake up, go through the motions, say you're fine, but deep down, you know something's misaligned. It's not laziness, it's autopilot. Wake, scroll, survive, sleep, repeat. That loop becomes an identity. And when the thought of doing something different shows up, setting boundaries, walking away from something fine, choosing yourself, your whole system resists. Because this isn't just about change, it's about detachment. Letting go of the things that made you feel safe, even if they were slowly suffocating you. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. You can't evolve while feeding habits that shrink you. At some point, you have to choose discomfort. The right kind of discomfort. The kind that stretches your soul instead of draining it. And that's hard. It's hard to say, I don't want this anymore when you can't justify why. Hard to outgrow a friendship that never technically harmed you. Hard to admit, I've changed and I'm not apologizing for it. But growth always comes with loss. Not just people, identities, coping mechanisms, beliefs that were borrowed, not chosen. And when you start to shed them, you don't feel lighter at first. You feel exposed. Because now there's space. And space is terrifying when you're used to filling every silence with distraction. But that space, that's the birthplace of the shift. That's where the real you starts surfacing. Not the version who kept it all together, the one you buried under other people's expectations. Here's the part no one tells you about transformation. It's not just the breakthrough, not the emotional release, it's the in-between. That strange middle where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. And that in-between, it will mess with your head. You'll question everything. You'll wonder if you should have stayed with what was familiar. You'll romanticize the past, even if the past was quietly killing you. And that's usually where people turn back. Not out of weakness, but because nobody explained that healing feels like losing yourself. And it does. Because you're no longer reacting from wounds, no longer pretending just to keep the peace, no longer saying yes to avoid guilt. Without those patterns, it feels like nothing's left. But listen, what you're calling emptiness, that's not the end. That's the reset. That stillness you're standing in, that's where clarity grows. Slowly, quietly, like sunlight creeping in before the day fully wakes. This is where you begin making decisions that are yours, not fears, not pressures, not habits. Yours. It's here that you stop surviving and start building a life that actually feels like it belongs to you. And yeah, it won't feel steady right away. You'll miss the rush of chaos sometimes. You'll doubt the calm. But don't confuse silence with emptiness. Quiet isn't empty. It's full of the answers you've been too distracted to hear. And when you finally stop running from that silence, when you sit in it without scrambling to fix or prove, that's when everything begins to change. Something begins to unlock. You start hearing your own rhythm again, your own voice, your own direction. Not the one handed to you, not the one shaped by everyone else's expectations, but the one that's been sitting there all along, buried under all the noise you thought you needed. And when you finally live from that place, life doesn't just look different, it feels different. Real, honest, free. Because at some point, you realize the heaviest weight wasn't what you were carrying, it was who you were carrying it for. See, it's not only your habits that keep you stuck, it's the quiet expectations stitched into your choices. The fear of letting people down who only ever loved the smaller version of you. The worry that if you grow too much, you'll outgrow the spaces you worked so hard to belong to. The guilt of no longer wanting what you once begged for. That's what creates the war inside you. One part ready to move forward, another still bargaining with your past. And the questions start creeping in. What if I lose them? What if they say I've changed? What if I don't even recognize myself anymore? But here's the truth no one tells you. Change isn't about becoming someone new. It's about honoring the person you've always been, beneath all the masks. You're not transforming into a stranger, you're peeling back the layers that never belonged to you in the first place. The fake enthusiasm, the endless explanation, the "I'm fine" mask you wore just to keep the peace. Those versions of you, they were survival suits. They served their purpose. They carried you through. But now they don't fit. They're too tight, too loud, too outdated for who you're becoming. And as you grow, something shifts. You start valuing peace more than attention, depth more than distraction, stillness more than noise. And yes, it feels lonely at first. Not because you're broken, but because you're finally tuned to a frequency most people spend their whole lives avoiding. You'll stop needing people to approve of your boundaries, stop chasing applause for your healing, stop begging closure from people who could never give it. Because the shift doesn't arrive loudly, it arrives quietly. Like a door that's been stuck for years suddenly opening, not because you forced it, but because you stopped holding on. And what's on the other side? Not perfection, not clarity every single day, but alignment. Peace that doesn't need to be earned. A life that no longer drains you to maintain. And once you taste that, there's no going back to good enough. No pretending the old way works. There's only forward. Even if it's slow, even if it's quiet, even if no one claps. At some point, you realize the breakthrough isn't something you chase. It's something you allow. Not because you mastered the perfect system, but because you stopped resisting what was already unfolding. See, we've been conditioned to think growth has to be dramatic, loud, obvious. That if people can't see your change, it doesn't count. But real change slips in gently. It's in the pause before reacting, the breath you take instead of running, the way you catch an old trigger, notice it, and choose differently. That's progress. Quiet, subtle, real. But to reach that kind of clarity, you have to stop performing. Not just for others, for yourself. Because we all do it. Pretending we've let go when we're still holding on, acting like we're healed when we're still nursing resentment, saying we're fine when we're quietly unraveling. Here's the raw truth. The life you want can't meet you at the level of your performance. It can only meet you at the level of your honesty. And honesty is where everything begins to shift. When you stop asking for peace while feeding chaos, when you stop editing your truth for people who are never meant to meet the real you anyway, that's when alignment steps in. Not because life gets easier, but because you finally stopped arguing with what you already know deep down. That inner whisper, the one that tugs at you in quiet moments, that's not your imagination. That's your future calling you forward. And it'll keep showing up in your boredom, in your restlessness, in that subtle dissatisfaction you can't explain away. You're not broken. You're just out of sync with your next chapter. And the only way to step into it is to stop gripping the one that's already over. The discomfort you feel right now, it's not punishment. It's the doorway. The space where the old no longer fits and the new hasn't fully arrived. And if you're standing in that messy middle, confused, restless, unsure, that's good. That means you're awake. That means change has already started. You're not who you were, but you're not fully who you're becoming yet. That's the space no one prepares you for, the in-between, where it feels like you've lost your footing, where the old patterns suffocate, but the new ones haven't clicked. That's where most people turn back, but don't. Because staying the same is easy, but it slowly starves your spirit. And eventually, pretending weighs more than the truth. So here's the choice: not to fix everything overnight, but to choose yourself in small, steady, unapologetic ways. To say, I'm done carrying what isn't mine. I'm done waiting for permission to be who I already am underneath all this noise. It won't always look dramatic. Sometimes the biggest shift is in a tiny decision no one sees. A pause, a boundary, a truth whispered to yourself that you finally stop apologizing for.
That's how it begins. So if this feels like a mirror, if something in you cracked or softened, drop one word below. Shift. That's your declaration. Your reminder. Your beginning.